Welcome to the Design Icons podcast, where we talk to creative leaders about work, life, and beyond. Design Icons is brought to you by Noun Project, the world's most diverse and extensive collection of icons and photos for every project. Today, we're joined by designer and illustrator Mick Champayne. Mick works on Google's Doodles Delight team, where she infuses whimsy and personality into every interaction. During this episode, Mick shares more about her work at Google, how she's using AI as a creative partner for her illustration practice, and more. All right. Hi, Mick. Super excited to have you on today. Thanks for taking the time. To get started, can you tell us a little about yourself? So, where did you grow up? How did you get to where you are today?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Also, hello, good morning.
Hi.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm Mick Champayne. Where did I grow up? A place called Kalamazoo, Michigan, which our slogan is, yes, there really is a Kalamazoo. You can buy the bumper sticker or the coffee cup if you want. And if you're familiar with like the Michigan mitten stuff, it's in the bottom palm kind of area. And yeah, I grew up there. It's like a college town. And oh, how did I get to where I am today? I'm currently located in Chicago, so not too far away, but had big city dreams and made it all the way over here. So yeah, after high school, I wanted to go to the big city. New York was still a little too scary for me, so I ended up going to Chicago and did a Bachelor of Arts in interactive arts and interactive arts and media is what it was called. I'm dating myself, but at the time it had one UX class, which is kind of wild. I just remembered I really loved making websites and like flash animations and things like that. I had taken a course in high school that taught me a lot of those kind of things. And I am definitely a Y2K kid where I grew up with like a purple compact computer and I played The Sims. I love The Sims on the game and making my own websites, like pimping out my MySpace profile, my AOL profile, and stuff like that. I was very much like, I don't know if you've ever seen that show, Pen 15. It's about these two young women growing up in the same era. And I was just like, I felt so seen when I watched that. It was like my childhood with like family computer in the living room and stuff like that. Very much that experience. And yeah, so then I went to college and studied that interactive arts and stuff. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it, but you know, it was computers and it was online, and I was like, this is fun, this is cool. In my college experience, I did do a study abroad program, and that took me to London, and I did an internship there at an agency called Digitas, and they were all digital media, and that's where I kind of got my feet wet in the actual like industry. So I started agency life first, and was making flash banner ads, email campaigns, microsites, and things like that. I loved it. Uh, yeah, I think eventually like the short story is that I got like homesick, had a like quarter life crisis, freaked out, and moved back to Chicago and picked back up at that agency. So that's where I started. I'm like want to pause, like I'm like throwing a lot at you with the life story there, but yeah, so I started agency. I stayed in Chicago in agency life for, gosh, I don't know, like probably 7 or 8 years, I think. Bopped around at different types of agencies. Started in like really focused advertising ones and decided that wasn't quite for me. Eventually moved more and started pivoting to uh, experience design agencies. So places like Huge and Critical Mass, before I took the leap into big tech. And I've been in Google for about 3.5 years now. And so, yeah, that's very different vibe and feel than any agency I've ever experienced. So
Very
that's
cool.
me in a nutshell. The clip
I
notes.
love it. No, that's really great. I'm wondering, do you remember when you fell in love with like art and design?
Oh yeah. Not to call it back to The Sims and like that whole era, but like I definitely grew up being more like an arty kid, loved the art classes and stuff like that. But I don't know. I didn't have the vocabulary for it at the time, but I just felt that imposter syndrome where I like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not really great with like actual pen and paper. Like there was no control Z. I can't undo things. Like once I think the computer, when I started getting familiar with it and like realizing like there's things like layers and I can undo and like morph things, I felt a lot more excitement and like I just took to it a lot quicker than like drawing the same thing over and over on sheets of paper and stuff like that. So I would say that, yeah, around the time like the computer came into play, I was like, okay, I'm all in on this design stuff. I never really thought about another career option other than something in this. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew I was going in that way.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit more about what you mentioned. You're currently at Google on the Doodle and Delight team. But before that, you mentioned you spent many years working at creative agencies. So for people who might not be familiar with how different kind of in-house teams versus agency, teams function and how different those worlds are, what have you found to be the biggest differences?
Yeah, there's been a lot of differences at a high level, especially Google. Google's a little bit of its own like special unicorn too, where this is where I didn't go to business school, but I learned about this after. They are a bottoms up approach in organization versus like everything I had learned up until this point was very top down, which meant like to keep it apples to apples, like a Steve Jobs who's like setting the vision of the company and like where we're going. Google is the opposite, where it's like people kind of spin up their own like projects and features and things like that, and kind of try to like by the power of impact and negotiating and stuff like that, they try to like and influencing, they try to like get their projects off the ground and go. So that is just like the biggest thing that I had to like kind of readjust and learn. Because with an agency, not only do you have like a client with an ask for you, but you also have like creative directors and chief creative officers and like a whole list of people who are, trying to drive their vision forward. So you're working against that. And then agency life versus tech life has been very different in agency life has always I think they're both really competitive, but like agency had felt a little bit more when it came to like the creative department. It was pretty much like the best of the best and like you were pitching your ideas against other teams and things like that. And tech definitely I would say that's still present, like it's still very much trying to get the best of the best, but also I think the difference for me is like in UX, it's a much smaller group. And instead of it being competitive against us, it's more about like trying to work with the eng and the PMs to like bring this vision to life. And like, it's more about competitive time. Like how much time do you have to like dedicate to things and like get things going? And it's just moving quicker to build. So very different in that respect for me.
Definitely. So you're on the Google Doodles and Doodle and Delight team, and you really are tasked with infusing some fun and whimsy into kind of every interaction that you touch, from what I've seen. So can you tell us more about your role and what a day on the job kind of looks like for you?
Yeah. So Doodle and Delight are kind of sister teams. So we're under this bigger blanket, or umbrella term. And then Delight, I'm Delight Features. So if Doodle is the like welcome mat to Google, Delight is anything that happens on the search results page. So if you go and Google the movie Wicked and you see a little button come up or something and you press it and like something unexpected happens, like the page starts floating away, like that's my team. We make Easter eggs, which is just like those like unexpected and delightful little like interactions or features that happen on the search results page. It's literally a dream job in terms of like if you were to ask like 14-year-old Mick, like what did I want to do and like make things with websites, like this is exactly the kind of things that I'm making. So it's like I don't know. It's incredible that this is like a job for me and that I get paid to do it. It is super fun and yeah, like I think like the weirder the better. So that as a personal brand, this is like a great job for me because I love infusing any sort of like weird things that I can. And so yeah, I think that I think I'm answering the question for that, but
Yeah, for sure. What's been one of your favorite Easter eggs to work on so far?
What did we do? So Snoop Dogg was kind of the unofficial mascot of the Olympics over the summer last year. And I just remember like he was like showing up to all of these different events and like was not by any means like a spokesperson or anything like that. But like we just kind of made an Easter egg that he had this like one badminton quote or whatever. I can't remember exactly, but he's like, oh, there it goes. He's just like this like volleying of it as he was like narrating the play. And one of my first Easter eggs on the team was like getting that into a little banner that scrolled across the top of his page when you Googled him, which was kind of fun. It was like a personal one. I have a couple in the hopper that I'm really excited about that are going to launch in May and July. Yeah, I'll have to like seed you those later because I can't. I'm bound by NDAs right now, but like I'm very excited for them. They're big musicians that's what's also been kind of exciting and fun about this job is like we get the insider scoop before and we get to help kind of think and ideate about like what little fun things could we do to show up. And I would say with all of the Easter eggs, what our main goal is to really like tap into like these like fandoms. It's not supposed to be a marketing, it shouldn't feel commercial by any means. It's more of like we want to show up for fans of these different entities, if they're like people and musicians, celebrities, even like video games, movies, and stuff like that. It's really runs the whole gamut, and it's a small team of like five of us that are trying to do this. So it's really exciting. A huge one that took off last year was Chapel Roan's. I don't know if you caught that one. It went viral on like TikTok. She ended up talking about it on Jimmy Fallon. There was a Coachella moment where she came on stage and she was like, "I'm your artist's favorite artist," and so somebody on the team is a huge Chapel fan, and he pitched the idea of like, what if we changed, when you Google something and that little line that comes up, like, did you mean? And it usually is a spell suggestion. He changed that to be, did you mean your artist's favorite artist when you Googled her? And like she lost it. Jimmy Fallon brought it up. Like it was like a whole thing. And it was like one of those things where like her fans ended up knowing about it and like they lost it. We did a Twilight Easter egg in the fall, where we did was just put the hoa 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 that song as like a running banner across the page, and they like, yeah, again, Twilight fans like went lost it. And it's like those things that like are super like just super sweet that like fans are feeling like it's reflective of them, and then it's like if you know kind of thing.
Definitely. No, that's what they're so fun to see. One of the other recent ones I noticed was what you did for the Oscars with
Oh
the
yeah,
Oscars. That
yeah,
was so fun and just really exciting to kind of know the one of the people who's behind those really fun
yeah,
interactions that make searching the web a little more interesting every day.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
mentioned the size of your team. How do you approach creative collaboration with your team? Are there any strategies or frameworks that, you've developed either personally or that your team kind of has in place to really help you more effectively and efficiently bring those projects to life?
Yeah, so with our team, because it is kind of like a small little ragtag, it started off as just like a little like, hey, let's just do this on the side. Now it's turned into like an official name. We're called the Zeitgeist Pod, which is really cool. And we're trying to figure out how to scale it to other markets as well. So that's really exciting of like how to take it to like we're going to Japan in May to like teach the team there like how to do it. And really the magic is honestly having everybody in the room together, virtually, honestly. But so there's an engineer that's on staff. There's me, the UXer, and we have a couple like an artist, like somebody to help actually make the art assets and stuff like that. My drawing capabilities can only go so far. And then there's the marketing managers who kind of also like do a lot of like social listening and like listening for these moments, and have a little bit more insight to like the social world and like things that are happening on TikTok. Like there's a whole channel, like just like people just dropping ideas, honestly, which is super cool. And it's every week we just like meet on a Monday and we do pitches of like things that we think might have, some resonance, or just like ideas and things like that, which is super fun to hear what other people are like into. And then we have a set of like configurable features because a lot of this is really important, like the timeliness and like the freshness of how we get it to launch. So we have streamlined the process so far so that like, we're pitching an idea, we using like a feature off of the shelf that we can like throw some assets into, or, kind of just do it really quickly, so that we can like get it into a approval with leads quickly by like, sometimes as short as like 24 or 48-hour notice. And then just hope that people find it and like it takes off. So I think for, in terms of like frameworks or like advice or anything like that, it's just literally like just having the perfect little circle of people and the right people to talk about it and like move things quickly. I do know that like Google at large and agencies, like a lot of process can get involved and like slow things down. So we've just managed to find like a really good cadence and like, okay, just, swarming around an idea, thinking through it, trying to create some mocks and pitches, and then sending it out and like hoping that we get the green light so that we can just go quickly into like an asset production and finalize and launch it.
Okay, I want to come back to something. You mentioned your drawing skills. And I want to talk about your drawing skills because, in addition to your work at Google, you have a thriving illustration and art practice. Your work is, I personally think, refreshing, funny, memorable, and you have a really unique style. Like I can look at if I see one of your pieces out in the world, I'm like, "Oh, Mick did that." Like it's very
Oh,
recognizable, which
thanks.
is super cool. So what drove you to start creating in this way through illustration? Kind of how has your style evolved over time? And like why do you focus on kind of these fun, funny, whimsical um, kind of subjects for your work?
Oh, yeah. Okay, to be like completely transparent, I would say my illustration was born out of frustration with my day job. Like again, this is harkening back to the days when I was in agency life. And while I love my agency experience, I think I think it's just jobs in general, especially like these days, just can be exhausting and like, not necessarily burnout, but kind of that vein where you're just like you're executing on somebody else's vision or brand or whatever kind of thing, or your idea. And while you can bring some of your own personality to it, at the end of the day, you're also like beholden to brand guidelines and creative directors and things like that. So I think I just started drawing because I just wanted something just for me. I I think for a long time I had thought like a creative person or a designer like had to be X, Y, and Z, like very like I don't know. I had a whole thing in my head, the stories we tell ourselves. But I finally started like kind of embracing like my inner weirdo like 10ish years ago, I think, or something. I don't remember, but I just was like, I like drawing butts and boobs and farts and like weird stuff, and like I don't know, I just like needed to come out. And so I just started drawing little things. I started with like a little series. Like I'm a big fan of meme culture and I like express myself in gifs profusely. And I think, just more broadly, like pop culture references and things like that. And so I'd started the drawing, like I'd find these little memes and I like keep a little folder on my desktop of like little things that I find funny. Now they're like more digital and in the cloud. Like I have an Instagram save folder. I have a Pinterest board full of like weird shit, honestly. And it's just more like they were inspiring to me. I didn't know what to do with them. So I just like started drawing what it was. And there was one dog that I still think about. It was this picture of him. It was like a little Pomeranian white poofy dog thing. And he put his face behind a wine glass, but there like because of the refraction or something, his face was like super tiny. And then he was is this big fluff ball behind it. And something about it was just like so funny. And it was like this fun exercise of like trying to distill down into like what made that drawing so funny to me in like the simplest ways possible. Because again, I'm not going back to the art thing, like I was not a great drawer or anything like that. I realistic, don't ask me to do that. Like, but when it came to my style, I think I started gravitating towards like big blobby shapes and like simple line work and just trying to keep everything simple, just like quick drawings. And then over the years, I did finally upgrade to an iPad with a pencil and Procreate because I've always loved like New Yorker cartoons and I would love to like have one of my pieces in there someday. I've not gotten around to pitching anything, but um it's a dream of mine, another bucket list thing that would be like awesome. But I think I've always just kind of gravitated towards that like more editorial feel. And I've just been like slowly trying to like point myself in that direction. And I would say like um yeah, my style over time is like just become more refined and like as I've gotten more comfortable drawing and also just like calling myself an illustrator, it's kind of evolved into this like super fun style that it does feel like it is me. I still keep the subjects really weird. I think for me, a big practice of mine lately is just like starting with a weird abstract blobby shape and seeing what like I find in it. It has a practice that I can't remember what it's called right now, but I've been using an app called Doodle Draw and I like love it. I use that as a base. Sometimes I make my own blob shapes and stuff like that. But I draw on top of it and like whatever comes out of it. And then I am a big fan of improv and the like concept of yes and so like I always try to like obviously get the first thing I see onto the page, but then try to think about how I can yes and it. Like how can I like make this like a little bit weirder or like playful or like I want somebody again kind of that if you know you know or like you're in on the joke. Like I want somebody to like think about it and like feel included. And so it sometimes it comes in like the whatever the object's doing, maybe the joke is inside the illustration, but like I've also been pairing it with a caption and that's where I like try to be like a little witty or clever and like have it pay off. And this is very much my like advertising background of like art and copy like playing together. So yeah, I think that's the goal of my drawings. And it's just like honestly, I like started it to like make myself laugh, and now I share it on social media on my Instagram, and over the years, like I just become I just love to share it with somebody and like I love when people reply and they like have builds or they have better ideas and stuff like that. It feels very collaborative and it just yeah, it's just for me it's just like fun and conversation and I love it.
I love it too. I'm a big fan of all the egg doodles that you did earlier in the year. The UFO egg doodle was like amazing.
Oh, bless you.
Um, did you recently start working in 3D too?
I did. Yeah, that was one of those like, you get like 2 weeks off around like the holiday breaks or something. And I was just like, I'm gonna see. It was on one of my to-do lists, like for every year you're like, you've got goals. My New Year's resolution. I'm gonna do this. So I started what 3D and like animation are like two big things I would love to take my practice further. And so with 3D, I found a free program. I love it. I love a free one. Like it was called Spline, I think. And I just wanted to like see what my drawings could like look like in 3D. I've been so two dimensional that I was like, while I am drawing butts, which is technically the back, I was like, what would the front look like? I think we all like kind of technically know, but like, what else could it look like? I don't know. I was just like thinking about it in a different shape. And um, I loved it because it broke my brain, honestly. Like I was like, "Oh, what does it?" Like when you start to turn it and like the tool like it is one of those things like when you are in like a Microsoft Word template and you like push something and it like then it, like throws objects like all the way like miles away from you or whatever and it's like I was like zooming in and out of this like 3D space and I was like, "Whoa," like I would adjust something and then I turn it around and it was like I don't know, like 100 yards away. And I was like, oh, so it was like a fun practice to like get me out of my comfort zone of what I've been working on. I have let it lapse a little bit. Life happened to me as it always does, but I would love to get like more back into that like fun because there's so many cool like animations you can do with 3D and like I would love to like 3D print something of mine someday. Yeah, so that one felt like more bite-sized like versus like trying to learn animation completely because like that is like can be a whole course and like a master's or whatever. So start with baby steps.
You've also, in addition to your experimentation with 3D, you've done a lot of interesting work with AI recently, and there's so many perspectives right now in design about how AI is going to like shake up the design world and how designers work. It already is in some areas, and also could potentially change what design jobs look like. You have taken this really interesting approach of using AI like a creative partner. So can you share a little bit more about how you're working with AI and why you've taken that approach? Because I think it's really unique.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of complicated feelings with this one. As a creative person and ethics and designers and stuff like that. And like I've come around to it and I'm excited about it. Mostly the way that I'm using it. We'll just kind of save the ethics talk for later. But what I've been loving and enjoying is like I think everybody thought, especially when it first came out, that it was like immediately going to replace jobs. And like I think in the first couple of years, we've all learned, oh, it's not as good as we thought it was going to be. That's not to say that it won't still get there, but like at least in the interim right now, it's still kind of weird. And like for art stuff, yeah, it can do some incredible things. I don't want it to completely like take over my job, like, but I think for me and my illustration practice, it has been more like what you were saying, like a collaborative partner. Um, I found, especially when I found a software that I was trying to like train my own model on, which sounds way more intense than it really was. It was just taking like a data set and like uploading them and there was so many things that I took into account, as well as like, my own like retainment of rights and things like that, and keeping it private and stuff like that. But all that to say is what I found was like when I did start like because of my drawing style, it's not as like quick to understand sometimes like what the subject is. And also sometimes the subject is just weird and like it doesn't really know how to process it. So all of the data that went into it and to build it, like obviously garbage in, garbage out. So when it came back, like I would prompt it something strange like a baby monkey and on a monkey's back or something like that. And then it would come back and it wouldn't look what it should look like in my head kind of thing. So there was like kind of like that practice I've been doing of like the blobs of like, what am I seeing in this? It has been kind of helpful in that respect of like, oh, like I'm just helping like finish the picture a little bit more, or get inspired completely from that image. Like it will sometimes come back with things that I was not expecting at all. And like I would just be like, oh, okay, well, let's see what we can make of this or whatever, or take it in a completely different direction. I have been using a new model or a new service called exactly.ai, which is more geared toward artists and also like with the lens of ethics and help and is being more proactive about this whole creative and like yeah the big debate that's coming at it. So it's been nice. I've been creating the models that I've been making with that have actually been a lot closer. And like the other tool I had been using was called Leonardo, and it was kind of like squiffy. But this one actually, I'm like, oh, it kind of gets me, and it's yielding a lot more accurate like returns when I prompt something. And I've been finding it's been helping me with just expanding my thought process like quickly. So for instance, I took on a small client, some client work that was about like they really wanted a dog in a business suit. And like on paper, that's like quickly like, oh, that's so easy. Like I'll just draw a dog. But then when you start thinking about it, like, oh, okay, well, what kind of dog and like what kind of pose? And like there was all these like different um components or requirements and things to consider when I actually started getting into it. Like, do you want more of like this generic feeling dog or do you want a very specific one? So what I started doing was like just even typing in like corgi in a business suit, bulldog in a business suit, German shepherd in a business suit, to just give them options to react to. And I found that that like halved my like thinking time. I didn't end up using, like, again, because your outputs are still like not great, or sometimes they just do not feel like me. But at least gives me a base of like a starting point or a rough draft to like quickly sketch, and then like, okay, take it back to the client. Here's like 5 or 6 different dogs that maybe you didn't even consider you were asking me about. So that's just been helping me like speed up my process too.
Yeah, very cool. And I think a really beneficial and useful, way to use AI for creatives for sure. Earlier in our conversation, you mentioned kind of the ideas that you have early on in your career when you're a designer and how that kind of shapes your identity in a way and can become like a very powerful part of your identity. There's an intensity that comes with working on design projects that is very unique to the discipline. There's this hope that you can, design can change the world, and very like aspirational kind of feelings and thoughts around that. I think for a lot of people, you've mentioned this before. So, how has the way that you think about identity in terms of being a designer, working in design changed over the years? Like how do you find balance there between like Mick the person and Mick the creative designer?
Yeah, I mean, starting out in my career, I definitely thought there was like a capital D way of design. I think I used like I think most people when they're starting out in their design careers, you go check out Behance or Dribble or all these other sites, and like I would look at these people's portfolios and like realize like I can't design like that or whatever. It felt I don't know. It was aspirational, obviously, but like I just don't. That's just not me. But I think, and then as a designer too, like you are the kind of this vessel for this brand or company or project or whatever to like, especially the type of design I've been in. Like you're kind of the conduit of like how that brand comes to life and like those experiences and things like that. Like when I worked on McDonald's, like iconic brand, like it's amazing, like super fun. I grew up on a steady diet of it. And while like I do feel there was some personal affinity to some of that, but at the same end of the day, like it's like these brand guidelines that have been dictated by another company and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say what has been like a fun, interesting pivot for me over the years is like how do I bring my like inner weirdo to those projects? And I think for the longest time in the beginning, I definitely thought like, yeah, there was a certain way I had to be like super buttoned up. I was trying to like emulate those other designers that I had seen. And I didn't really realize that there was room for me to be my own designer and bring my own point of view to projects. And I, eventually, I don't know if there's just something about turning 30. I paid off my student loans and I just started just, like giving an F, honestly. And I was just like, I felt a little bit of freedom and I was like, I can just, I really, for whatever reason, leaned into like this like kind of weird person, or I shouldn't say weird that, but like this, my personal brand or whatever. But I started kind of embracing that and like what if we did like this weird for McDonald's, especially like we were working on this feature inside of the app for when you ordered ahead and you went to go pick up, and I was just like, what if we did like a giant like sign that comes up to like help you? And I don't know, it wasn't like anything like super wild or anything like that, but it was like I remember putting out more bolder, like sillier ideas and like it actually like hitting. Like I was like, "Oh, okay, you do want to hear things like that." And it was like it was, and over time just like people wanting more and more of that, like I think kind of led me to like where I am today, honestly, like where I'm making literally like wild little weird Easter eggs or whatever. Like people wanted more of that. It's the same with the drawings. I think people like the drawings actually kind of in a roundabout way helped my day job, like the designer part of me, where it's like this creative outlet that I had been kept keeping separate from the design stuff for so long. And then eventually like I've been able to bring them closer together, and it's like a little infinity loop, I feel like. And that's been really satisfying as like just a creative person to like have those two sides of my brains like working together instead of like competing. And then trying to like bring the like little, you know, uh, little strange ideas from the drawing stuff. And like sometimes, you got to answer the brief or the call or whatever, and put in the like the safe options, not safe, but like the expected ones, but then also just throw that wild card in. And I think that has been really like helpful and successful too. And I just get excited because like when they do land and resonate with people, like, and we want to go build them, like I get so excited, like, and feel validated from it. So it just makes me want to keep doing that. So yeah, in terms of identity, as a designer, like I think everybody says like bring your own point of view and stuff like that, but I like am understanding what that really means, and infusing that into my own work now, and like realizing how important like your own point of view and identity as a designer is.
Beyond being a designer, what are some of the things that you love? What are some of the ways you spend your time? Who is Mick the person?
Oh yeah. I am like, I don't know like how much this resonates outside of other people, but I'm like a Midwesterner, like through and through. Like I love to travel, but like my Midwestern roots like come out real hard when I'm traveling. I think there's something about Midwesterners. We're very friendly and approachable, and I will talk to a wall for hours kind of thing. I'm that person that like I just got back from a trip from Paris, and I did a 5-day solo trip where I went all by myself. I had like I just was going to do things that I wanted to do. I went to a bunch of museums. I walked like 20,000 steps a day kind of thing, like all over. And I knew a couple people there, but for the most part I didn't know anyone. And I like kind of love those experiences because I just love meeting new people and making these new connections, and just like hearing about other people's lives and like what they do. And so of course I booked a trip to like Versailles, and it had like a guide and stuff like that. And then like the others people. So of course I'm just like yucking it up and chatting with all these people that are on the trip. Like, why are you going to Versailles? Like, what do you like? What brings you here? What's your life like at home? Like, I just want to hear. I'm just so interested in other people's stories and lives and experiences. I had this other point in the trip where somebody had recommended me this like I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like a TikTok famous restaurant because they have this chocolate mousse that they offer, and it like they bring it out in this giant vat, this giant big bowl, and they just take a big scoop of it and like slap it down on your plate. And I was like, obviously here for that. Like it's so weird. But on top of that, while I was waiting in to get a seat at the bar, I ended up just like this woman accidentally ordered a bottle of wine, and I just like inserted my life or myself into her life at that moment. I was just like, oh, do you need help with that? Like, do you I think she was like, I don't know, I guess. And then we just started talking. She was from New Zealand. She lived in London now. Like she worked for a for a diplomat, and she lived inside their house. And I was like, tell me more, tell me everything. We ended up spending like 4 hours together, split like 3 bottles of wine at the end of the night and the moose. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, when you open yourself up to other people and like the world, like it's so amazing, like these conversations and like experiences that you can have. And those are the things that I like love, and I will never forget. And like, will I ever see her again? I don't know. We did make a date to try to meet up in a year, but we'll see where life takes us. But either way, like it's really nice to just like have these little like special moments in your life.
For sure. To wrap it up, I have a couple of questions, just a couple more questions left. So, what advice would you give to designers that are looking for their first job? And what kind of skills do you think that more junior designers should invest in now in order to kind of stay competitive in this current job market, which I think is really uncertain for a lot of people?
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel for them. I graduated into the '08 recession, and it was just as daunting, I feel like. Very, very scary to like not have anybody hiring, it feels like, and then you're trying to find a job after you've got student loans to pay and things like that, or just now you have to live on your own. Um, I I think, like, broadening your mindset, like, I think, um, again, I was kind of open to whatever. I took the first job that I could get, not saying that that's necessarily the best advice, but, like, just being open, and I think I didn't learn this until later, but you can always control Z your life, and I thought that was, like, a really interesting concept I hadn't thought about. I think up until especially as, like, a new grad, you've lived your life so linearly and, like, you know, you're just kind of, like, moving through time in such a straight line fashion and, like, okay, I, you know, went to high school, I went to college, I graduated, like, kind of things, and I think, you know, like, the next thing is, like, get a job or whatever, and I think it's so precious about what that first job is, and it feels like it's gonna dictate your entire life, but, like, I I wish I had given myself a little bit more breathing room to go and explore opportunities. I got lucky in where I did land, but, like, I didn't learn about until after I was 30, there's, like, these, like, working holiday maker visas where you can go and, like, live and work in New Zealand or Australia. Sometimes it's on a farm, sometimes it's a hotel, and, like, just having more of, like, a gap year kind of feel, like, really go and, like, explore the world if you obviously, if you can, and, oh, like, there's a whole question of affordability and everything like that, but, like, if there's opportunities like that, like, you don't have to just jump right into a job, and I think that actually makes you better to be a wiser person or, like, a more, y just yeah, having a bigger world view, as a designer, like, what I didn't realize at the time, but, like, all this travel that I've done and, like, seeing and meeting new people has helped really build my empathy muscles and, like, understanding, like, that there's people outside of me or my small community or my college, so I think just, like, trying to broaden your worldview would be, like, the, like, macro level advice that I would give, and it will inform your point of view as a designer and, like, what you bring and how you think about problems and, like, there's all these little things that I just took for granted and just was, like, was so hyper focused on finding that job, and I just wish I'd given myself a little bit of breathing room to you it feels like you're gonna be so old when you grow like, get out of college, but, like, at the same time, like, I am 38 going on 39, and I feel like I'm still young, like, it's just so crazy, so it's, you've got so much time, and I wouldn't rush into anything, I guess is the biggest piece of advice that I would give.
Over the course of your life, career, what's one of the biggest challenges you've experienced or mistakes you've made, and how did you handle it? What was the outcome?
Oof, asking me the tough ones. I like to reframe mistakes as, learning opportunities, yeah, and there was one, gosh, I'm trying to think. I feel like my life has been like a series of happy accidents, so I don't know if I have any, like, big experiences or mistakes or anything like that, but I would say that, there was at one point, I did turn down a dream job, or what I thought was gonna be a dream job, and I beat myself up about it for a long time, like, it checked all these boxes, and I was, like, a couple months pregnant at the time, and it would require me to, like, move, across the country, and, like, not knowing what the other side of pregnancy and, like, life was gonna look like, I was hesitant and scared. Um, I would say, yeah, not mistake, but I would say regret, like, I wish that I just, like, followed my dream too, because I think life would have found a way to work out. If anything I've learned is, like, life it's like that Jurassic Park quote, chaos theory, life, finds a way. And I it just you'll make a good, like something will happen and you'll reframe things, and I think just having an optimistic point of view is honestly the secret to my success is, like, just, you know, just kind of trying to, like, change your feelings on that. Like, don't look at it so cynically, like, okay, so yes, this door is shut, but this window opened kind of thing, I think is that, yeah. So I in a nutshell, like, there's no way to I don't have, like, any big mistakes because I don't really think of anything as mistakes as more than I just, like, learnings. There's been obviously, like, things where I've, like, screwed up in front of a client and stuff like um, but again, just, like, in the macro lens of life, like, is it really a big deal? Probably not. Will they remember it? Probably not. So yeah, unless you're like tweeting to like 100 million people, I guess then maybe that's different. But who gave you the right to do that? I don't know. Somebody should have double checked you, I think, at that point. So like that's not your fault. That's not your fault. Anyway,
What's been one of your biggest wins?
biggest wins. Gosh, you're asking all the tough questions. Yeah, I love this job. I think that's a big win for me. I think really just being able to do all the things that I love to do and like juggle all these plates, spinning plates that I have going on. Like I love public speaking. We didn't talk about that, which is totally fine. But like I love helping and talking and telling these stories to people and bringing them to like conferences and stuff like that. And I just feel really lucky that like if my it feels like my life's a Venn diagram, and right now I'm in the middle. Like I've got my art and illustration over here. I've got like my UX job, my design job, like day job where I'm making Easter eggs. That seems fun. And then I'm like, I have a almost 4-year old and I love my life. I get to travel and do all these things. And I'm just like, I would say my biggest win is this like that I'm able to like live in the middle of all of that right now. And yeah, it's manageable.
That's awesome. And no, yes, we could talk for ages about like all the amazing things you're doing, and you're so generous with your time, and you regularly give back to the community with public speaking and doing interviews like this one, which is amazing, and I know very appreciated by all of the people who get to learn from you. So thank you again for all the time that
Of
you
course.
generously give to the community. To wrap it up, when you look to the future, this can be personal or professional or both. What gives you hope?
Gives me hope. I know because it's a little bleak out there right now. But I think community, like I'm gonna, use the MLK quote. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So I'm gonna go with that. Like that's what gives me hope is like, yes, it feels like really wild and scary right now, but like I think I'm a half glass full, silver linings, like optimistic person. I just feel, especially with people and going out there and talking to them, like and that sense of community, whether that's like with my Instagram people or if it's like literally like my friends in Chicago and the design groups that I do around here or whatever. I think like we're all just we have each other and like just talking to each other makes me feel better and stuff like that. So I would say that is what gives me hope, that we'll get there. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time. That's all.
I completely agree. Well, Mick, thank you so much again for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm excited to put this out into the world so everyone can learn from your awesome insights. And I will see you on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, loved chatting with you.